We are live.
All right. Well, thank you, Corey. I'd like to
Myself here today.
thank everybody for joining in tonight. We're going to start the community development portion of the meeting tonight. For community development, we have 3 items. The first item is the approval of the November 9th community development meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, item 2 is the matter of rezoning requests for a planned residential development at Fowl and West Ridge Road to rezone from residential low density to residential medium density. We got Mr. Bob Yost on the line. Mr. Yost, please just state your name and address of the company for the record.
Robert D. Yost, 260 South Logan.
Okay, go right ahead. Anything you'd like to join or share with us?
Is Daryl there to make a report? Farkas?
Yes, sir, I am here.
Okay, could I just defer to Daryl because he's so thorough with his report?
Absolutely. Daryl, go ahead. But if anybody has any questions, we can come back to you later.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right,
Chair.
Daryl.
Thank you, Mr. Yost. Through you. The proposed subdivision, it consists of 2 distinct zoning districts, a residential low density district and residential medium density district. Mr. Yost is proposing a planned unit development in the first phase of the subdivision. The first phase consists of 2 distinct parcels, and one of the parcels is zoned residential low density district, which does not permit a conditional use. The agreement with Planning Commission was that the conditional use would be passed contingent then particular parcels be rezoned accordingly. Mr. Yost has completed his obligation and is approved on my end from a zoning aspect.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Yost? Or if not, we'll see if there's any questions.
No, I think that's probably as good as it gets with what Daryl's reported. I mean, it does clean up the entire parcel of property so that it all is consistent with RMD.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, opening up for questions. Or comments. Hearing none and seeing none, I will read the complete committee report. We have considered the matter of a rezoning request for property located at West Ridge and Fowl Roads. This is an ordinance authorizing the rezoning request for said properties, parcels 06-24-017-012-063 and 06-24-017-102-0.
Tom froze.
Me too.
Did he freeze for everybody?
Yes.
Yes, he's back. You froze there for a minute, Tom.
Oh, I froze. So
Yep.
Read the committee report again. Okay, I'll read the complete committee report again. Hopefully I don't freeze this time. Okay. We have considered the matter of rezoning request for property located at West Ridge and Fowl Roads. This is an ordinance authorizing the rezoning request for said properties, parcels 06-24-017-012-063 and 06-24-017-102-006. This would be from R-LD residential low density to RMD residential medium density. This matter was approved by Planning Commission on December 1st. Could I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Mr. Yost and Mr.
Thank you very
Farkas.
much. Have a good
You're
holiday, everybody.
You as well. You as well. Thank you.
Take care.
Uh-huh.
Steve next door.
Okay, one more item for community development. This would be the matter of a rezoning request for property located at 265 Washington Avenue to be rezoned from residential multi-household high destiny to business neighborhood for Neighborhood Alliance Administration Operations Center. Looking for Ron Coco from Neighborhood Alliance.
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Just to give everyone a sort of a summary of this request for rezoning. This is for 265 Washington Avenue, better known as the former YMCA building that Neighborhood Alliance has acquired. As you know, that was originally a recreation center with a pool and gym, some racquetball courts. Neighborhood Alliance is looking to adapt and reuse this building for the purpose of their administrative and operations center. Neighborhood Alliance is a Lorain County nonprofit organization that serves the underserved populations in our county. They have a child care operations that they would like to locate in this facility. They would also like to run their Meals on Wheels program and have a kitchen operation there for that purpose. Currently, the property, as mentioned, is zoned residential multi-household high density, which allows for non-commercial recreation and childcare in ancillary office. However, it's felt, and we agree, that it would be better served if the property would be rezoned to neighborhood business, which is more aligned with the operation for Neighborhood Alliance with the use of the kitchen and the child care and their administrative offices. So that's what we're asking for approval on. And with me this evening also is Alicia Foss, who is the Executive Director of Neighborhood Alliance, if anyone has any questions about their administration and operation activity. So with that, I'll turn it over to the committee.
Well, thank you very much, Ron. Thank you very much. It's nice to see that somebody's taking action with that property over there. I've seen it several times, and I wish you luck. But in the meantime, is there anyone on the committee that has any questions?
Tom?
Yes, go ahead, Mrs. Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Mr. Coco, I know that there's a pool inside the Y. What are your plans with the pool? Especially with there being a daycare, and I know that the pool has been there for years and there've been daycare centers there. I'm just curious.
So actually, in some cooperation with the City of Elyria administration, Neighborhood Alliance did conduct an evaluation of the existing pool, its condition, and actually sought out and see if there was some interest on the part of the Cleveland Y organization to maybe take over and operate that pool again. They came in with their consultants and looked at the conditions, not only of the pool itself, but the equipment. And the estimates that they were getting was that it would be about a $500,000 investment to bring that pool up to current standards. And with the current conditions, the Y did not feel it possible to take that project on. So Neighborhood Alliance intention is to fill in the pool area and convert that space into administrative office area.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing no more, I will read the complete committee report. We have considered the matter of rezoning requests for property located at 265 Washington Avenue This is an ordinance authorizing the rezoning requests for said property. Parcels numbers 06-25-120-000-001 from R-MHH Residential Multi-Household High Density to BN Business Neighborhood. This item was approved by the Planning Commission on December 1st. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion made by Mrs. Mitchell, second by Mr. Sarah.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Good luck to you, Mr. Coco.
Thank you. And thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Have a good, happy holiday.
Happy holidays to you.
Bye now.
Bye-bye. Okay, seeing no further business for community development, we will go into a joint meeting with finance. So I'll ask Mr. Stewart to please call finance. I'm sorry, yes, finance, please.
I'll call finance order.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. 5 items on the agenda. The first item is the approval of the November 30th Joint Community Development Finance Meeting Minutes. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Sarah, seconded by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item 2 is the matter of a Nord Family Foundation grant to establish a community development corporation in the city of Elyria. This is referred by Mayor Whitfield's Chief of Staff, Ren Flanders. The floor is yours.
So thank you, Chair. And this is a grant we received from the Nord Family Foundation for $65,000 to stand up a community development corporation in the city of Elyria. We have someone on the call, Justin McCauley. He's on here 2 times to speak. But most of you are familiar with community development corporations. There was a heyday when Lorain County had a bunch of them around the community. But right now there is no CDC, full-time CDC in Lorain County. I know El Centro is working on one, but there's a lot of opportunities we're missing as a community because of it. And Nord Family wanted to support the city of Elyria in starting one up. So these funds will be used to receive and then start the planning process to create this community development corporation.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
Mr. Chair, if I may, through you to the mayor, what exactly is the Community Development Corporation?
Yeah, so it's a nonprofit organization that really focuses on economic development, affordable housing development. In Cleveland, they look a lot. That's the best place to look for the examples of these. But some of the big projects you've seen out of Cleveland, like for instance, the St. Luke's Manor, the old hospital that was transformed into an office space and senior housing, and like a rec center. You know, these sort of bodies, they're able to get private dollars and public dollars. And a lot of times when projects don't make sense for a private investor, this is the type of body that can take on a large project and get those capital grants, as well as bank grants, as well as, they can really be real flexible with the funding that they can receive to redevelop communities. But then also CDCs are often also responsible for like community events. So like putting together events that bring people to areas. And so we've been, kicking this idea around all year and kind of coordinating community members around it. And there seems to be a lot of interest on downtown that, the community
Sure.
really wants to do activities and try to redevelop downtown. So this would be the vehicle for community to get involved with, help to really turn downtown around.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Mhm.
Thank you again through you to the mayor. So the $65,000 grant, is that a matching grant? Do we have to pay it back? How is that grant going to work?
Yeah, so there's a partial match to it. I believe we're expected to put about 30,000 into it, and it doesn't have to be paid back. The whole purpose is to really plan and establish this CDC over 2021. So Nord is a partner in this, and but there's no stipulations to pay anything back.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mayor, is this would not replace any other group, would it?
No, it wouldn't. I mean, there's a big gap in the community right now in this space, I would say. But no, it's not replacing any groups.
Thank you.
Mr.
Through you, Mr.
Mr.
Chair,
Yes.
it's Amanda.
Yeah.
So for
Yeah.
purposes of legislation, my office would need to know if there is an upfront match that will need to be provided, and where that funding would come from. I guess I'm just a little confused if there will need to be a match that
No,
the city
the
needs to
reason-
put up.
Yeah, so through you, Chair, there's not a match.
Okay.
You know, it's not like I'm just saying that we applied for, I believe, 130,000. That was the total of the project. We said we needed 100,000 from them, and we would put in 30,000 to make it happen, and they only gave us 65. So it's not that we have to match. It's just there was an expectation we'd have skin in the game as well.
Okay, so we don't have to put up 30,000 in order towards them, I guess is what I'm saying.
Nope.
Okay, all right. Thank you for clarifying. That will help me out and us out greatly.
Excellent. Excellent.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes, go right ahead, Mr. Stewart.
So Mayor, how does this differ from the Elyria Community Investment Corporation? Will we still be, is there a board, is there a panel member or committee on this?
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference, and we actually, Justin McCauley, who's, you know, he's gonna talk later on about, he's been doing the grant writing and wrote this grant. We did a comparison of what the difference between the CIC and the CDC was. The main difference is the CDC is really run and owned by the community. It's as opposed to the CIC, where I'm the chair, you got the finance director on there, you got the law director on there, then you got 2 community people on there, or 3 community people on there. This is solely run by the community. This is like, it looks more like it's a nonprofit organization. It's its own entity, you know, so it's separate from the city. We should partner with it. We shouldn't just leave it alone, but CIC is really just an extension of the city.
Okay. Thank you.
Good to know.
Mr.
Any
Chairman,
other questions?
Tom,
Mr. Oswald had his
Oh,
hand
Mr.
up.
Oswald. I'm sorry, Mr. Oswald, please go right ahead.
through you, Mr. Chair. So is this committee going to be made up of certain people, and that will be the people that direct where the money is handed out to or used? Is that something that there's already a committee in place for this community? You know, the money's going into this entity, but who's doling out the money, what it's to be used for?
Yeah. So the money is first coming to the city, and then we will work with going through the process of the planning of the CDC and working with you all as well to locate those community members who are interested in this work to become board members. But there'll be a whole planning process throughout 2021 to establish, you know, how many committees is this group, you know, is going to be there, who's going to be the board, you know, how do we make sure the business community is represented, the, you know, residents are represented. So there'll be a whole planning process in 2021. So it's not been predetermined.
So it's really, this is just accepting the grant.
Yes, to begin, and then
Okay.
next year we'll start the actual planning process.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions? Okay, not seeing any or hearing any, I will read the complete committee report. We have considered the matter of a Nord Family Foundation Community Development Corporation CDC establishment grant. This is an ordinance authorizing the acceptance of the said grant to establish the Community Development Corporation CDC in the city of Elyria. Could I get a motion from Community Development?
So
And
moved.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but this is been requested to be passed as an emergency. So I would ask that the
Correct.
motion would include that.
Okay, this is requested to be passed under suspension of rules and as an emergency? Okay, excellent. We'll make that part of the record. Okay, motion from Community Development.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mrs. Mitchell, seconded by Mr. Sarah.
Question.
Question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from Finance?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Ms. Davis,
Second,
moved by Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion?
question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Okay, item number 3 is the matter of a Skill City Initiative program in partnership with Lorraine County Community College. Mayor Whitfield.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. We are fortunate to have some of our partners from the community college here, Tracy Green and Cindy Kushner, to talk more about this initiative. But we spoke about this at our last council meeting, just this opportunity we have to really distinguish Elyria as the most skilled city in the region. I share with you all the feedback from Medicare around one of the reasons they chose to stay and grow in Elyria is because of our workforce. So this is just a way for us to continue down that pathway and investing in our folks. So they prepared a brief presentation, if you don't mind, Chair, that they could present to you all.
Yes, I would. We'd love to see it. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, and I'll pass it over to them.
Okay.
Great. Good evening.
Good evening. Hey, just to start off, I'm sorry. Just please state your name and address just for the record, please.
Certainly. So my name is Tracy Green, and my home address is 1320 Meadowview in Amherst, but my second residence would be 1005 Abbey Road in Elyria. I'm also joined here this evening by Cindy Kushner. And Cindy, do you want to do the same?
Yes, I'm Cindy Kushner. My home residence is 3540 Edgewater Drive in Vermillion, and also share the same second residence as Tracy.
Excellent, excellent. Well, go right ahead. Go ahead. We're anxious to see this. So
thank you. Well, first off, thank you so much. I'm sorry, Cindy. Yes, yes, we see it.
Okay.
First off, thank you all for having us here this evening. I am so excited to see everyone. It feels like I haven't seen many of you in 9 months. And really just in even being here this evening, feel the power of the partnership that we have with the city of Elyria. So first and foremost, just thank you for having us both here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tracy Green, and I have the pleasure of serving as Vice President for Strategic and Institutional Development at Lorraine County Community College. And the initiative we want to share with you tonight deepens that partnership that we've had within the city of Elyria, where we call home for our main campus residents. The campus residence that is the first community college physical location in the state of Ohio. So we have a lot of firsts, and tonight would be another first that we would like to share and present to you. So Cindy, if we can go to the second slide. So before we jump into the actual partnership project that really is a jobs initiative and economic development initiative, I just want to spend a minute or so really talking about what led us to this and where we're at as an institution in terms of the response to really 3 crises at once, one of which is the pandemic, the health crisis, the second, the economic crisis, and third, the social unrest that we see throughout not only our community, but our country. We've been guided by 3 principles. First and foremost has been campus safety and community safety. So partnering with our community to provide first responders, to provide PPE, to do all the right things to make sure that we have a safe both campus and to protect our community. And I have to call out instructor Mark Jesse, because part of that safety meant within about 10 days, we had to turn 1,000 courses from an in-person to an online version. And Councilman Jesse also serves as instructor of music at Lorraine County Community College, and he came up with some really fabulous ways of doing that kept students engaged to the point where with that across our campus, by May of 2020, we had the largest graduating class in the history of the institution. So as we continue, while we're not out of the woods yet with this pandemic, we still have a long way to go. We know that this hit us like a light switch, but we know that the recovery is going to take much longer. And as we do that, we really focus in on our localness and what we can do within our local communities to help both business and industry return to and return stronger from an economic competitiveness, and for people, many of which, and you see the numbers as I do, have been dislocated to some businesses that may not be returning post the pandemic. Now is a great time to be able to help these individuals make that career change and get connected to employers like Mayor was mentioning of Invacare, who are on a growth trajectory with some very new industries. And so we want to be able to do a rapid response to that. So tonight, if we can go to the third slide, Cindy, the overall goal that we want to share with you and how we will get there together is that to ensure 2,000 Elyria residents are able to earn an industry recognized credential or certificate that is aligned to our jobs and addresses local employers' workforce needs. When I say a industry recognized credential, we'll get into that in slide 4. And this is over a 5-year period, as you can see in the footnote, that we would anticipate about 400 Elyrians going through this. We can go to slide 4. So in the fall, for a response to the pandemic, we launched something called our Fast Track to Employment programs. So this is very new. We just piloted in the fall, but we identified, working with employers, both Elyria and across Lorain County, what are some of those in-demand occupations that in 16 weeks or less, an individual can earn an industry recognized credential or a certificate that is directly connected to employers who have jobs who are hiring. And so you can see the program benefits that are there. They earn the credential, they get aligned to, all of these programs are aligned to areas in which that are growth sectors that are in demand and provide sustaining wages. That short term, people in this environment really cannot wait for 2 years to get reconnected to a job, or 3 years. They need help right now. We also then provided a dedicated academic and career coach for folks, and ensuring that there's hands-on experience, both for interview coaching, and so that we're looking beyond the end of the program to provide that career connection. But we also want to plant that seed that don't just end with your credential or your certificate. Consider, as you get employed with local employers, continuing your education to make you even more marketable in high growth jobs. And you can see some of the programs that are here, some of which may sound a little foreign, are under micro credentials. We have a IPC J standard, which is a soldering program. You can get certified in a matter of just a couple of weeks. And those positions, folks, manufacturers are highly seeking in our area. I just want to give you a summary of what we experienced in the fall semester. We're just ending the fall semester, grades are going in, so we don't have a full analysis of the program, but we can tell you about the actual participation. So if we can go to slide 5. So in that participation, we were heavily weighted with females. Many are single moms that came into the program and have been working in service sector positions. Already, the greatest populations are coming from the cities of Lorain and Elyria, and they are in that working age group. Those who were employed, they were whether it's service sector or other sectors, and they're seeing the need to be able to make that change. We're also seeing a greater proportion of students of color coming into these short-term programs. And that is different than what we see on our main campus and in programs across the board. So we're really excited to be able to provide that type of solution. You can see some of the programs of greatest interest are connected to healthcare and IT and manufacturing. So very job-related, career-related. So that would be the cornerstone of the project. We have other elements that really make this unique. What would be the first initiative, partnership between Lorain County Community College and a city that we've ever had. So Cindy, can you go to slide 6 and you want to take it from here?
Sure. So of course, we don't have a program if we don't have employers, and the employers, the Elyria employers and others have been at the table every step of the way. We've been really fortunate that they actually help us recruit in many cases. They come to the info sessions. They're at the hiring events, and of course they are very involved with the internships, co-ops, development of apprenticeships, clinicals for sure, all of those things. So employers are right there at the table. And if you look on the middle and right side, we did run a burning glass report just Friday afternoon, and these are some of the the careers, the jobs that are surfacing as in-demand, high-skilled needs. So this is right here for the city of Elyria, and you see many of these mirror and fit directly with those fast track programs that were highlighted a couple slides before. How do we work with employers? So my team, one of my teams is the Business Growth Services team. And their job is to connect to employers every day and to be that first point of contact to the college, and really that go-to person, no matter the need that the employer might need. We've made it our job to really be experts in what I call sort of financial aid for businesses. You know, there's financial aid for students, the FAFSA and all of that. Some of you may be familiar with. Well, there's lots of funding, particularly right now out there for businesses, but they're not always sure how to connect with that funding. And sometimes it's pretty laborsome and complex, and then they're just like, oh, forget it. So we've made it our job to really know what's out there, what's coming down the pike, so that we can connect employers and take that work out of it and just make it as simple as we can for them. And then the other big piece that we do is when the employer needs training, we try to make that as simple as possible too, and flexible. Take the training to the employer where we can, take the services for their employees, their students, to the employer site too. So remove those time barriers and where do I go? And, I'm working, how do I get there before I'm done with work? And, try to remove all of that, take the services to the employer and the employees. So connection to the funding and really just make it as easy as possible for them. Of course, we can't make any of this happen without our partners. Elyria City Schools has been a partner of ours for many, many years. The Urban League has been a tremendous help in connecting to potential talent, those interested in getting on those career paths, and just being that support network in the community to those we're serving. As is El Centro. Centro's doing more and more in Elyria, and several others that I haven't mentioned. The other thing I just really like to point out is I've been at the college 25 years now, which I can't even believe. There are more supports right now for students in the community to access than ever before. It really all started in recent times with the Commodore Cupboard, when we discovered that many of our students had food insecurity. So we launched that, and then we're like, oh, guess what? If you have food insecurity, you have lots of other things going on. So we launched the ARC, which provides all those needs and connections to everything from mental health services to connection to housing, utility support, finding all those things so that students aren't running all over the place and taking time away from their studies. And now we also have the career closet as well. So there's, that's just continuing to evolve and becoming more robust and better. So these are some of those funds that we're able to leverage and again, kind of cut through the red tape and help employers have access to and students and employees of those employers. And you see the sort of laundry list. Some of them are grants that we've been able to tap into. That might, the Success Corps grant is just coming up for that sort of out of school youth population. We have Tech Cred that we can connect employers to, the micro credentials. So you see the list. We can leverage those partnerships with schools and the foundation scholarships, the trustee presidential and diversity. So all of this, and of course, Ohio Means Jobs.
So all of these elements that Cindy shared already exist. They're already supported by other sources. They're there to really make it as possible for students and for employers to get the help and the training that they need. This is the differentiator that makes this initiative really exciting. And this is a last dollar funding opportunity for the City of Elyria residents. All those other funding sources that Cindy mentioned would be applied first. So based on an individual, if they have access to Ohio Means Jobs, to other state and federal support, we apply all of those funds first, and that this element, this fifth element, would provide a $500 gap scholarship per participant. This is the norm in what we're seeing in terms of what folks need, the difference between being able to enroll and complete the program or not being able to. And 100% of the funds associated with this initiative go to help support, whether it be the tuition or program costs. Sometimes it's licensing, sometimes it's books or materials. There's absolutely no administrative cost because of all the elements that we've already mentioned. Those services are already in place. And so we just wrap all of that around this initiative. In addition to that, as we see the outcomes of these programs and the ability to connect and help not only individuals, but also employers, we would have the opportunity to attract additional donors and supporters with a restricted fund only for this purpose as well. And so we could set that up through our LCCC Foundation. And again, 100% of the funds go to support Elyria residents in their journey for that certificate or industry recognized credential. We can go to slide 11. Additional elements of this in terms of the approach, there would be no wrong door philosophy. So if we see someone who may need a GED, they haven't graduated high school, we have the ability to redirect them to a service to make them ready for this program. It's also a very team approach. Individuals are the face of the program, so they get to know those who are involved in this initiative specifically. We see this as a joint effort with the city and with the partners that Cindy mentioned to do that outreach, to engage residents and their readiness, as well as an opportunity to brand this and make this a very inclusive and inspirational program to encourage others to step forward. But we also know that we need to evaluate. And so we would ensure that there's data and evaluation that we're sharing back with you and with other partners so that we can pivot as we need to. And as I mentioned, this is the first strategic community partnership of its kind for Lorain County Community College. We have not done this with any other community here or elsewhere. But also we know that the needs are changing, right? We can't predict the next 6 months, much less, the year from now. So we would work together to adjust and modify based on the needs of Elyria residents and Elyria employers. That program list that Cindy shared is growing. That was our starting point. But as we get to know more of those employer needs, we can adjust that and work together with them so that this leads to jobs and economic growth in the end. So in summary, on slide 12, you see all the components that would make up this initiative. 1 through 4, and even the enhanced elements of 6, we can package all of those together. Number 5 really makes the initiative very focused on the goals for the city of Elyria and a community in which that we call home. So we are certainly here for any questions, ideas, and conversation that you'd like to have this evening.
Well,
question.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent presentation. There's no downside to this. This is an excellent opportunity. I'm certainly glad that Elyria is the first one to come up with a partnership, this type of program. And I believe this partnership is an excellent opportunity for the residents of Elyria going into the future, and investing in people is just absolutely fantastic. So my hat's off for everyone involved getting this going. And at this point, I'll just open up to see if there's any questions.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, a great summary of what you got going on. I do have a few questions. As far as you've got a nice list of skilled workforce needed, I'm always curious why the building industry construction trades is not listed in there, where I always felt that the need that we have is huge and nothing's being done as far as that end of it. And then in these classes that they're teaching the skill, are they going to get the skills needed, how they should get a job, and also how they can keep the job? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
Oh, I am so excited you asked that question about the building trades. This particular gateway here focuses on programs that can be completed in 16 weeks or less. However, that no wrong door philosophy that we mentioned, we have partnered, what do we have now? 7 different apprenticeship programs in the trades area. One of our most recent ones is with the Bricklayers program for apprenticeship. It is a true earn and learn. It takes a little more than 16 weeks though for an apprenticeship, right? But in that program, they are able to earn, what is it, Cindy, 30 college credit hours, be paid on the job and get their journeymans at the end. So we do have programs that are just like that. It just doesn't happen to be within the scope of 16 weeks. But again, remember, we're co-designing this, and that program from a funding model wouldn't necessarily need the type of gap scholarship in most cases that we see here. But those would definitely be programs that we hear from employers and from trade organizations. Another one is Boilermakers. We've got a strong partnership that has rolled out in this past year with Boilermakers that builds on our welding, our plumbing and pipe fitters. We do have a construction program. Building maintenance is one that we're in the middle of right now. But those are certainly not just in the construction trades, but also within manufacturing, about industrial technology. Those are huge, huge trade opportunities, and certainly could add that as a gateway to those programs in the trade. So that is definitely an area that we are making very robust efforts on. And I'm sorry, the second part of your question in terms of the skills to get a job, one of the elements of the programs of the benefits to participants includes interviewing, connection to employers who are hiring. So they get a first look at these folks, the ability to draft that resume, and the coaching through our career services about sustaining that job. You know, our vision is that as we work with the placement of individuals coming in to fill those gaps for employers, is that employers then are reinvesting those individuals with their employer-sponsored tuition and other educational programs that they have. And then we can help the employer leverage those other funds. So we see this as a very close relationship working between employers and students.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions?
Yeah, Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Sorry. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I think this is great, is exciting, but I do have a question. So we're going to help people land positions at companies. Is there going to be a provision that students that we help have to stay a certain time period with that employer? So they're not gonna we're gonna help them get a job, we're gonna give them this training, and then they stay for 6 months and they're off to something better. Are they going to be required to stay with that company for a period of time?
Well, certainly we want to be able to ensure that there's that right fit between the student and the employer on the onset. We've not built in a requirement, but certainly from the design of the program, we've been able to ensure that the employers get the opportunity to kind of date the student and vice versa, so that you avoid those high costs on the employer end of turnover, but also on the student's end, so that that they get connected and get stable and get that experience that's going to be able to lead to that second job. Because many times folks that are involved in these programs are doing a complete career transition. They may have had employment history, but in a completely different sector. So their first experience, they need that experience to be able to land a second or a third position.
Okay. Thank you.
And the other thing I would just add to that is really the idea is to invest in the individual. So the hope is that many of these will be an earn and learn situation where they'll be earning and taking advantage of all of those, that financial aid for employers and things like that. So that investment in that employee tends to create some of that loyalty, and that's the hope, to kind of build that environment.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Mr. Talat.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Mine's more of a comment. In speaking with the mayor previously about this, he gave me a statistic, and I've thought about this, that it's that first $500 that is the bridge to this education and employment kickstart, I guess, for no better term. And I don't think that we cannot afford to participate in this. If 10 people do it and one stays here and works a whole career here, it pays for itself in the first 5 years. If you look at the investment, it's a great investment on our part. So I'm wholeheartedly behind this.
Very good. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Callahan.
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
So the $200,000 investment that's being asked, where is that money coming from?
So through you, Chair, our thought was this would come from issue 6, economic development. As I shared at the council meeting, we intentionally delayed any sort of major expenses in 2020 to try to preserve funds for this year. But there was a couple other things I know you weren't able to see me that I want to speak to briefly. When we talked about workforce early on, Councilwoman Mitchell really stood up LCC as making sure we were partnering with them. And I'm just glad that she raised that, because it kept us thinking on the same lines as well. But we really see this as really 3 great opportunities for the residents of Elyria. One is for those individuals whose industry has been disrupted and they're trying to change careers and they're trying to figure out, hey, where am I going to work next? It's clear this path I'm on isn't working. So the reskill. The other is the upskill, someone who's kind of working within a company and is like, hey, I'm ready to move up the ladder, but I need some support to get that training, to really encourage them. And then the third is our recent graduates, these high school graduates who are coming out of school. This is a promise from Elyria to say, hey, if you're living in Elyria and sticking with Elyria, the city's investing back in you. And, having this kind of last dollar amount, I think is going to be another added benefit, as we're going to go through every other resource that's available and then tap into this amount last. So the thought was the city would seed this with the $200,000, but I plan to do as much fundraising for this as possible. If you do the numbers, over the course of the 5 years, we're looking at $1 million project. So my hope is that if we seed it, we can not only get the employers bought in over the time once we demonstrate success, but also our community. I think even right now, if we had this in place, we could easily ask folks, hey, for Christmas, why don't you give someone a skill? And folks, would want to do that. So I think that this is palatable for folks as well. But thank you.
Any further questions?
So for legislation purposes, this would be $200,000 a year. I mean, I'm looking at the proposal, and I know that there will be an agreement that will come through my office. I'm just trying to, for purposes of getting together with Ted for the financing portion of it.
So through you, Chair, what we're requesting is for 1 year, because we want to have to come back to you all next year and say, hey, here's the status, here's how much we raised, here's the success of it. So just 1 year as the seed.
Okay, for the pilot funding. Okay, thank you.
So I want to be clear on that as well. So 1 year, 200,000, that should be
Yes,
on the committee report?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other questions or concerns or comments? Okay, well, hearing none, I'll read the committee report. We have considered the matter of a skilled city initiative program in partnership with Lorain County Community College. This is an ordinance authorizing the establishment of the said program. First year amount, $200,000 put in by the city of Elyria. Could I get a motion from community development?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from finance
So moved, Mr. Chair.
by Ms. Davis,
Second.
second by Mr. Bear. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Excellent. Thanks again for the sharing the program with us, and we're anxious to get this started, and we're looking for positive things. Thank you again.
Thank you so very much. And we are excited to do this with the city of Elyria and all of the benefits that will come. We look forward to bringing the first recipients back to see you as we get this off the ground. So thank you very much. We're very excited.
Yeah, we'd like to see him in City Hall down the
Yes.
road, maybe next year.
We'll do that. We
All
will
right,
do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Bye-bye.
Christmas.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. And that is the matter of a downtown facade improvement grant application for 309 Broad Street. This is referred to by Community Development. Mona?
Mona actually had to go, so I'm gonna go
Oh.
ahead and take care of this.
Okay, Ashley, go right ahead.
So the application was considered by the Elyria Economic Development Committee on November 23rd. The committee voted to approve the application and to reimburse the applicant for a total of $4,010 for the improvements. The program requirements have been met. The total cost of the project is $8,020. What the applicant is proposing to do is to install a new door and to replace windows.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Ashley. Are there any questions from either committee? Any comments? Okay, hearing none and seeing none, I'll read the complete committee report. We have considered the matter of a downtown facade improvement program application. This is an ordinance authorizing the approved for the applicant, Jamel Elder, to utilize funds that were approved by the EEDC, Elyria Economic Development Committee, on November 23rd, 2020, for improvements to the exterior of the building at 309 Broad Street. All program requirements were met, and the total cost of the project is $8,020. Could I get a motion from Community Development?
So moved.
Motion made.
Mr. Chair, excuse me, through you, I thought Ms. Scott said the was $4,010.
Okay, Ashley, could you please clarify that? Because you said
Yes,
410 and then you said
so
the total.
That's how much, yeah.
Cost was $8,020 and we reimburse, or we have the opportunity to reimburse up to half. So
Okay.
we're proposing is $4,010 in reimbursement.
So the committee report should read $4,010.
Correct.
With that correction, Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Excellent. That correction has been made, $4,010. Thank you very much. So there was a motion made by Community Development. Could I get that person who made that motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Sarah
And I'll second.
and second by Mrs. Mitchell.
Question.
Question on the motion. All in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Can I get a motion from Finance?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Baird, second by Ms. Davis. Any further discussion?
Question.
Questions have been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Development and joint meeting here. And this is the matter of creating the Elyria Small Business Forgiveness Loan Program. Do we have Dawn Calvert?
Yes, thank you, through you,
Oh.
Mr. Chair. This is a program that was created to address funding gaps for startups, property developers, and expanding businesses who present projects to the city that will positively impact economic development. So as we're seeing the pandemic continue and more businesses are struggling, we are continuing to see a growing list of companies who really cannot find the funding that they need to be successful in the long term. So a lot of banks have restricted the funding towards the type of business. If you're a bar or a restaurant or a food service company, you're really probably not going to get any kind of funding in this uncertain climate. So we already had a funding gap issue with some of the risk and some of the market, certain different market conditions within the city, and we're seeing that need expand. So this program was designed to address that issue. It was written to be flexible, but still maintain basic underwriting criteria so we could really make sure we're evaluating businesses on their likelihood of success into the long term. And the funds can be used for fixed assets, fixtures, pre-development costs, and working capital. So those would be the eligible uses. We capped the maximum loan amount at $40,000. And some of the eligibility requirements include that the business must be located within city limits. There has to be proof that an attempt has been made to secure financing on their own. So much like Vice President Tracy Green was talking about, this being, the scholarship program being a last dollar funding, this is the same concept. We're not here to supplant private funds or bank funds, but really to address some of those gaps that we're seeing grow and expand from what we already had previous to the pandemic. We require 5% equity so that, nothing that is prohibitive to a startup or somebody really struggling, but we can show that there is some skin in the game from the business. Loans can be collateralized. So if we're looking at a development project where there's property acquisition or there's machinery and equipment, we would have the ability to secure the loan through that collateral. And then another requirement would be that the cash flow must be greater than debt service. So obviously we wouldn't be loaning to a project that has taken on more debt than it can handle. The proposed terms for the project are a 0% interest, 3-year term for working capital, and a 5-year term for all the other types of loans, which would potentially be forgivable based on one full-time equivalent employee hired for every $20,000 loaned. And after 12 months of on-time payments, then the loan forgiveness would be considered. As a process, we would require a pre-application meeting of all businesses with city staff, most likely me, to look and make sure that there's not more appropriate funding streams or to ensure that the minimum requirements have been met. At that point, it would be referred to the Elyria Economic Development Committee for consideration, who would then make a recommendation for city council approval. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions that you have about the program.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that. So I'll put it out to the committees. Are there any questions? Any comments?
Mr. Tolet has his hand up.
Okay, I can't see any. I'm sorry. So who is up there?
Mr. Tolet.
Okay, Phil, go right ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Callahan. Don, my question is this: if we're leaning a collateralized asset, let's say someone opens a bar and they need money for refrigeration, and we post a lien on that, and they go belly up, how do we re-collateralize that loan? Will we physically take possession of the coolers? How does that work? If you could explain the collateral piece of this. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councilman Tolet. Yes, it's exactly how it would work with a bank. We would, we certainly don't want to be in a position where we would have to take a cooler as an asset. But yes, that is how that would work. And it just helps secure and add a little gravity to the loan versus it being considered free money that doesn't have to be paid back.
Mr.
Go right ahead, Mrs. Mitchell. Mrs. Mitchell.
Anything that we can do to help businesses is great, but I don't know that the city needs to be in the money loan business. I'm not 100% on that. So I have a couple of questions. Where is this money going to come from? And to piggyback on Mr. Tolet's question, we take possession of a cooler. What the heck are we going to do with them? How will we get our money back? Because if we're taking possessions of coolers, trust me, there's 1,000 other restaurants that are in the same situation. So I doubt that you're going to find a buyer for those coolers. So what the heck would we need coolers for?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll take this. Thank you for that, Councilwoman Mitchell. And I think this is a point for us to think about as a city. We currently have a loan product through community development through our COVID allocation. And, you know, we know the history of the city with the revolving loan, how very few revolving loans we were able to do because of those stipulations. So I think this is, you know, the thought was this would be another aspect that we could use. And so we'd have CDBG, and the thought for this program, we'd use issue 6 allocation. So we'd have a CDBG opportunity, an issue 6 allocation opportunity. But I think you bring up a great point of, you know, is this the business the city wants to be in? And, you know, potentially down the road that CDC could be the vehicle that does this work. But, you know, as of now, we got businesses who need capital, and I don't think we want to continue to give grants out. We had that CARES money, so it was easy to kind of just, all right, this is for this purpose. But now as we go into 2021 without any sort of CARES Act money from the government, it's like, well, this ain't just free. We need something back. So, but that's, yeah, I'd love to hear more thoughts, but that's a great point.
Thank you. If I may, just one more question, Mr. Chair. I agree with you, Mayor. We should be helping these businesses all we can. But the forgiveness part, that we're gonna forgive if they hire one employee for every 20,000, that doesn't make sense to me. So I'll let you guys explain that. Thank you.
Yeah. I think this is a, you know, something that we need to look into. Mayor, I don't know if this is something that we need to act upon today. This just could be just for some discussion and some more, you know, with the whole issue 6, these are, you know, dollars that we're investing, that we're getting from our residents who are earning their hard-earned money and taking a chance on with businesses. And to say that we're going to give them money and then all of a sudden they go, things don't work out, and all of a sudden we got to be responsible to our residents to say, well, what are we doing this for? And I know, and that's just kind of the process that we're working through. But I would be more inclined to further the discussion on it with, you know, this body here, and then figuring out other opportunities. Like you said, with the COVID, those were great opportunities that we could just use. I mean, ultimately, they're still our dollars, our tax dollars that we're using in helping individuals, you know, but I think this is an opportunity we can look at and build upon and see if this is the direction that we want to get into with, you know, with that. But I'll open it up for anybody else. Mr. Callahan.
Yes. Anybody else have any thoughts on this? Thank you, Mr. Stewart, and Mrs. Mitchell.
I would agree with Mr. Stewart. I think maybe we need to look a little further. The theory is good, but as Mrs. Mitchell said, restrictive, and being in the banking business, it isn't always easy. It sounds like, oh yeah, we lend the money and they pay it back. Well, not everybody gets in a position where they can pay it back. And then we're responsible for the collateral, whatever it might be, and so on. So I think it's a concern, but I'm not ruling it out, in my opinion. But on the other side, I think we need to be careful.
Thank you, Mr. Baird.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes, go right ahead, Mr. Tolet.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Banks are very, very tight right now for lending money. And I think we need to have more discussion with this program. I think it's a very valid program, but maybe tighten up the parameters just a smidge instead of it being one employee for every $20,000. Maybe it, and this is hypothetical, please, maybe 2.5 employees. Let's do the math on it. Make sure that we get our money back, you know, one way or another. We know that we can generate X amount of dollars per each employee. So, but I think it's a very, very valid program because of how tight banks are right now. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was excellent. Excellent point. Anybody else have any comments or suggestions?
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go right ahead, Mr. Sarah.
More of a comment than anything. I do like the concept of all this. but whenever we talk about issue $6, we need to define where they're coming from, what economic development, because the first thing people are going to see in the paper is they're taking it out of my streets. We've been through this for several years now.
And
Well-
people want their streets done.
Right. Well, just if I would have got to the point to read the complete committee report, it would be coming out of economic development funds. So, yeah, you're right, that we need to be clear on that, where that's coming from, when and if this goes through at some point in the future.
And
So,
not just on this, on any projects going
Correct.
forward. You know.
correct. Absolutely. Agreed 100%.
And through you,
Yes, go right ahead.
I think that I love the idea of us, again, this is an important need, but there's no rush on this. As long as we're deliberate about it, let's continue to have dialogue and put some more shape to this and come back to you all.
Yep. Excellent. And anybody, thank you, Mayor. Anybody else have any comments? Okay, I can make a suggestion here that we table this. I could say to the second meeting in January or first meeting in February. What are your thoughts, Mr. Stewart?
I would just say put it into pending items, and then
Pending.
when we have more discussion, maybe with the mayor, then we can kind of come back to the forefront, because that way it's there. Sure, giving it a date, it kind of gives it a timeline to keep those dialogues open. But I think for now, let's put it in pending, and then we can meet with the mayor or talk with him, and maybe just trying to get some more, and Ms. Calvert, and just try to get their team together to see what the best approach moving forward is.
Okay. Thank you. I think that's a good suggestion. At this point, that's what we'll do. This will go into pending items. I do want to thank Dawn Calvert and Mayor Whitfield for bringing this up, because it does have merit, and I think we could possibly use this in the future. So thanks again. Is there anything else anybody would like to add? Okay, seeing none. As far as community development goes, we are done with our portion of the meeting, where Mr. Stewart will carry on with finance momentarily. So no further business for community development. I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Motion made by Mrs. Mitchell, second by Mr. Sarah.
Question.
Question on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, please use the voting sign aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion to adjourn. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Vic, could I get 60 seconds to get another glass of water?
We have 61 seconds.
I need 60 seconds to get rid of a glass of water.
All right, but John Farrell's got his eye on this 8:15 kickoff.
Thanks, you guys. Mr. Jesse, is that my present still sitting under your tree?
I'm gonna have to step away. I gotta pick up something out of my computer. I'll be right back.
Yes, it is, Mr. Tolet. But seeing as how we're not allowed to meet in person, you're going to have to wait quite a while to get it.
Okay.
And the post office has been really busy.
Gotcha.
And Santa's got to deliver before 10.
That's right.
I'm gonna tempt you.
Oh, nice. Oh, all of it? Thank you.
Back, we ready?
I am.
Okay. Where's Vic? Oh, he may not get away.
Okay, are we all set?
All set.
Okay, we're going to continue on with finance. First item on the agenda is the approval of the regular finance meetings dated November 30th, 2020. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird,
Second.
second by Mr. Tolet. Any discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 2. We've considered the matter of delinquent inactive utility accounts, authorizing a resolution to certify that said list of accounts to Lorraine County Auditor's Office for collection per the attached. Can I get a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird,
Second.
second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any discussion? I think this is just standard collection for
Question.
questions been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 3. We consider the matter of legal services, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for professional legal services with Walter Haverfield, attorneys at law, for the sum of not to exceed $150,000. Current contract expires 12/31 of 2020, requesting suspension of rules and emergency clause to apply. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by
Second.
Mr. Bear, second by Ms. Davis. Director Firestein, or is Mr. Brubaker or the mayor? Sorry, just trying to, who's handling that?
I can take this one, Mr. Chairman.
Director Firestein?
Thank you. Through the chair to members of the committee, Walter Haverfield has been the city's legal counsel for union matters for, I think, going back to 2012. This is simple renewal. We have, I believe, almost all of our contracts except for one up at the end of next year. We worked through a few of them this year. We had a wage reopener for one of them, got through the dispatch contract and asked me for a 1-year renewal. So we will have a few contracts in front of us this coming year. We asked for your approval on this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions from the committee or anybody else who's not on the committee that in regards to what's being asked? No?
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
So we have a motion, we have the second. Is there any further
Second.
discussion? We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If not, call for the question.
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4. We've considered the matter of professional services. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for professional services with Macaulay and Company LLC for the sum of not to exceed $96,000 for grant consulting, grant writing, government and public relations, and resource development. Contract effective date is January 1st of 2020. Requesting suspension of rules and emergency clause. Can I get a motion just to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Mayor Whitfield.
Sir, thank you. Through you, Chair. So Macaulay and Company, we've engaged with them since the beginning of this year, and they not only helped us to secure a number of grants, which I believe you got in your packet, but also helped us through this CARES dynamic. They were one of our big resources that helped us advocate to the feds and then also to the state that helped us really manage and navigate that whole CARES dynamic. So Justin's on the call here as well if you have any questions for him, but I know he's had the chance to work with Director Deary, with the finance director as well, so they can attest to working with them as well. But they've done a great job of getting grants for the city, and we want to continue to work with them in 2021 to get more grants.
Okay. I'll open it up to any questions in regards to Mr. Colley or administration regarding this. So initially, I'll ask a question. So where did we come up? Initially, the initial contract that we had for this year was under $50,000. I'm guessing that we didn't have to move forward with that. So where did we come up with the additional 96? And then where would that $96,000 be coming from funding source?
So this year I haggled and asked them to prove their weight, to say, hey, I know what your rate is, but you got to show me, you got to bring in money. Grant writers are supposed to bring in more money than they cost, and a substantial amount more money than what they cost. And Justin was willing to take that risk with his company, and they were able to pull in resources that justified the means to go at their normal rate. But again, this is an up to amount. And the resources they would be split because this is serving the whole city. This isn't just, and I think Director Pelesi can speak to how we do it now, but this is not just a economic development thing. It's not just one thing. They're getting trucks for one department and working on EPA stuff with the sewer stuff. So it's all over, but I'll let Director Pelesi speak to that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yeah, I mean, depending on what the grant is and what department and what fund it affects, we can determine where it gets paid from at that time, but it can be a source of different funds.
Okay. I see that Mr. McCauley is here. So Justin, glad to have you. If you want to just kind of give who you are and what you're about. I mean, this is the first time I think I've actually seen you. I heard you on the phone. So please, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to see everybody. Yeah, and under ordinary circumstances, I would certainly appreciate the opportunity to appear in person in front of everybody. So Macaulay and Company is a strategic communications firm. Primarily, we do two things: grant writing, as Mayor Whitfield mentioned, and government relations. I am a registered lobbyist, as are the other people on my team. And in addition to writing grants to foundations, community foundations, and corporate foundations, we write grant proposals to government agencies, Lorain County, all the way up to regionals like NOACA, the state of Ohio, and the federal government. And you may have a document that I sent to Mayor Whitfield earlier this month in front of you that outlines some of those grant wins and some of the expected other grants that we will pursue into 2021. The difference, I would say, between what we do and what maybe an ordinary grant writer does is we apply that lobbying discipline. We get to know government funders, program managers, and we try to understand what has worked for them in the past, what in maybe last year's round of funding they liked or didn't like, and try to apply those lessons to proposals that we write for our clients. And so we do profiling of the grant opportunity, but not just what appears in an RFP, what we can learn through these conversations. It's different today than it used to be, but with the advent of Zoom becoming pretty much ubiquitous, I mean, I feel like I'm getting more literal FaceTime with funding program managers than I really ever did. So I think in a way, I hate to put it this way because there have been so many downsides for so many people, but this has probably helped our efficacy in terms of grant writing and working with funding program managers. And then just, I guess the last thing I would want to add, having played a role and been a part of the city's EPA Clean Water Act compliance team, I've been working on similar projects in other communities in Ohio for years. And that was really the first thing that drew me to reach out to Mayor Whitfield a year ago and say, you know, I think there are similar dynamics in Elyria as to other communities where I'm working, and I would love to leverage some of those relationships on behalf of Elyria. And I think there have been positive results from that, opening doors and expanding conversations. So, you know, that's more than a nutshell. Forgive me for going on, but happy to answer any questions that you would have, Mr. Chair, or anybody else on the committee.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McCauley. Any questions? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Do you, Mr. Justin, do you look for grants when you look at our city and notice that we can leverage this grant and go after it for us, or do the mayor find out that there's a grant available and come to you? How does that work?
Great question. Both. So Mayor Whitfield and Director Calvert, Director Firestein, Chief Mack, I've gotten programs referred to me by people across the administration, and we have vetted those. In some cases, they aren't actually a good match for the city, but in many cases, they are a good match. You know, my goal would be perfect knowledge of all grant programs available and bring that to the city and say, you know, here is the exhaustive list of every grant program that might be a match for you. But that is a dynamic and changing landscape, and it's different all the time. So I'm grateful for those programs that are sent to me for review, but I'm also constantly scouring, looking for new ideas. And the more I get to know about Elyria, the programs that are happening in Elyria, the partners that the city has, the more opportunities I am, you know, my antenna are up, and the finer the tuning gets, that I will be able to identify the ones that are a good match.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Mr. Baird.
Yeah, Mr. McCauley, I didn't see, I was looking through here, a list of other people that you serve, clients, and where are you located? I didn't notice an address, so just curiosity.
Sure. I'm in Rocky River right now. I don't know if you can see the slanted ceiling behind me. I'm in my attic, which is my office.
You're moving up.
Yeah, I have a, exactly. I asked my wife to take our toddler down to the first floor so that you don't have to hear her freaking out at bedtime. So forgive me if you could hear that. But I'd be happy to provide a list. But City of Lakewood, City of Brooklyn, those are a couple of other communities that we've worked with. Lorraine County Community College has been a client in the past. Cuyahoga County, Ohio University, Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council. Those are some of the public clients that we've worked for successfully.
Okay, thank you. I like the list. It looks like it's been successful, and I'm sure the mayor's happy with that, as we all are when we get additional funding to help with our different projects and so on, and particularly, like you say, the fire department and some of the other departments you work with within the city. So if you've developed a relationship and that's positive, it's good to work with people that you have confidence in. And if the mayor's confident, and you seem to have a good track record, so I would endorse that.
Any other further discussions? Ms. Mitchell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, I'm not on this committee, so thank you for indulging me. Mr. McCullough, I heard you say that you work with the EPA. As you know, Elyria has unfunded EPA mandates that we have to adhere to. How do you work with the EPA? How can you assist the city of Elyria with these unfunded mandates? Thank you.
Great question. This is another dynamic and changing landscape. Over the last few years, the players at the regional level, which is actually headquartered in Chicago, and at the national level have changed a little bit, and they're going to change again after January 20th. So about 2 years ago, a law was passed by Congress in the 11th hour of the 116th Congress. It was called the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act. That codified some changes that the EPA had been considering for a long time, but most notably, it was endorsing the use of what's called integrated planning. The people at the regional level in Chicago have been open to discussing and exploring the use of integrated planning to make cities like Elyria, to allow cities like Elyria to present plans for compliance with the Clean Water Act that are more affordable and on a timeline that can be reasonably met. I'm very fond of this phrase, so forgive me if you hear me use it more than once in this conversation, but when your only tool is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. And that's how the Department of Justice and the US EPA in DC headquarters behave. Their hammer is a consent decree, and they don't really care what's going on in your community because they have 19,000 communities across the United States they have to hem in and force to comply with this law that was passed in 1972. So this new law that was passed 2 years ago in December provides this flexibility and gives us a chance to advocate on our own behalf and say, we are implementing integrated planning. We are using this strategy and we continue to use it. We plan to use it into the future. And so we need more time. We need greater flexibility. Mayor Whitfield and Director Deary have been on all of these calls, and so they can probably speak to this just as well or better than I can. But the true value here is being able to open discussions and have them, frankly, with the regulators, separate and apart from the strictly legal negotiations. It's being able to have the open and free conversations about technical merits of our approach and explaining why some things that maybe worked in a different community that the EPA is expecting us to do just don't make sense in Elyria. Nobody knows Elyria's system better than the Elyria engineering team and our consultants. So when we talk about justifying our case to the government, we are the government. The city of Elyria is the government. So that's one thing that I think we try over and over to get across delicately, my job is not to stick a finger in anybody's eye, but to make a case to say, we need a little bit more time and a little bit more flexibility to think through the approach that we're going to take, especially with a new administration. Does that answer your question, Ms. Mitchell?
Spoken like a true lobbyist. Thank you.
Thank you. I take that as a compliment. I was talking too much, I think.
Right. But I'll dovetail to what Ms. Mitchell was saying in regard to the EPA and Law Director Deary. We've had some meetings, and we'll be having a presentation, just to see where things are at with that. So that's got to be forthcoming here. We're working through when we can meet and everything. And I think that's really a meeting that needs to be held in council chambers just because of the dynamics that are happening. So we'll get through that here shortly, down the road here. But is there any other questions for the mayor or Mr. McCauley in regards to what's being proposed?
Through you, Chair, just one comment I wanted to make. And I appreciate Councilman Baird's comment about, trusting that, if I feel good about it, that you would support. And just so you know, like, I make folks work hard. I don't really play around with this stuff. Justin knows I'm kind of a stickler. I'm hard. And so that was the reason. Like, if you're not providing value and adding value, it's no hard feelings, but the city's got problems we're trying to address. So trust that, I'm gonna make sure anybody we working with, I'm putting them to work.
Sure. Any other discussion? Ms. Davis?
Through you, Mr. Chair. For Mr. Ted Paulette, does with, the cutbacks and so forth, where's this money gonna come from?
Through you,
Since we've
Mr.
had
Go
a
ahead.
downside.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Depending on what the grant is and what project may be involved, it could come from various funds. At first glance, most of it will come from the general fund, but if there are grants that are going to affect the water system, the sewer system, anything like that, then the associated fees can come from them funds. So just depends on what the grant is, what the project is.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other further discussion? We'll call for the question.
Call for the question.
Question to call. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. McCauley.
Thank you, Mr. Cawley. We'll take this to council.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Bye. Okay. Item number 5. We've considered the matter of the purchase of police vehicles and equipment for the vehicles through the State of Ohio Purchasing Program. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to purchase 6 police vehicles and equip for said vehicles. 3 of the vehicles will be paid from the police levy fund capital outlay account, and 3 of the vehicles will be paid from the 2016 0.5% income tax fund issue 6 capital needs department capital outlay account. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. Police Chief Whiteley.
Yes, we started years ago in replacing our fleet. The unmarked cars, we still have 2006 vehicles that are in our fleet that we need to get rid of. That was advised to us by the head of the maintenance garage. 15 years is a long time for any vehicle. And he said that they're just too costly to maintain anymore. And then if you remember back in around 2011-ish, we bought 20 vehicles from the Highway Patrol that had 100,000 miles on them. And we've gotten rid of several, but we have a couple more left that we need to replace. So that's what these vehicles would be for, is to replace old vehicles that we have really gotten our use out of.
Yeah. Right. The need is there. Mr. Jesse.
Yeah, Mr. President, through you. So Chief, have we run out of old street signs?
Well, thank God for issue 6 that we haven't had to weld them in the floorboards in like 5 years. So thank God.
Well, Well, this is the proof of the issue $6 that we're putting this money to good use, that the residents have entrusted in us, and Chief, you've done a phenomenal job. With that being said, though, then if you can explain with the central maintenance garage, they're going to go ahead and that partnership that you've developed with them to kind of install the equipment, if you want to comment on that.
Well, yeah, most departments, police departments, they hire out to private firms to put in all the equipment for the police vehicles. In effect, you could double the price of the equipment to have them installed by these agencies or companies. Effectively, it's free to the city to have the city employees that work either in communications or central maintenance to install the equipment in the vehicles for us. So, I mean, that's a big savings. It's a big help. And then when they have to do maintenance on the vehicles in the different areas, let's say we have a short and a wire, the communications divisions are the ones who installed everything. So they know the path that was taken. They know what wires go where. They don't have to search it to find and waste time just trying to figure out how everything was wired. Same goes with CMG. When they put something in, they know how it was done, so they would know how to address it. So there's two advantages to having them do the work for us.
And Chief, what's the turnaround on this?
Well, it'll depend on when they get the vehicles in, but typically it's a 4-month turnaround to get new vehicles in.
Okay. Any questions for the chief? Ms. Davis?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. What American-made car are we getting?
The Ford Explorer.
Thank you.
Yes.
Keep my check coming.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Chief, I'm looking at, I think last time there were some vehicles purchased. They were Ford Explorer police interceptor vehicles. Is that the same type? Just this, the most recent version of them?
Yeah, those vehicles, they were police interceptors, but they weren't equipped with everything that marked cars need because they were being used as more or less unmarked. But yes, they are Ford Interceptors, and they will have all the equipment for road patrol.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions for the chief, Mr. Tollett?
Do at the same time we write the ordinance for the disposal of the old vehicles, or does that come when the new vehicles come in?
Really, that's a call for, I guess, council and the law director. What we've been doing with vehicles more or less has been putting them on the govdeals.com website. That's worked out very well for us. But whether or not we need to do an ordinance to do that, I'm not sure.
Through you, Mr. Chair, typically we would have a resolution and an ordinance declaring the vehicles unfit for public use, and that would come whenever they are taken out of service.
Okay, thank you,
Ted.
I would concur with that, but I'm guessing you're probably still using these.
We are.
So I wouldn't do anything legislatively to dispose of them yet.
Okay.
Till you're ready.
And then Ted, did you want to weigh anything as far as where the funding mechanisms? I know it's spelled out over there. Is there anything?
Yeah, the money was already appropriated. There was monies available in the capital outlay police levy fund that was unspent, and also monies in the 2016.50% income tax fund in the capital needs capital outlay that was unspent. So this does not require a change to the appropriation.
Okay, very good.
And finally, through you, Mr. Chair, I would suggest that this would be passed as an emergency due to the lead time for the order to go in.
Does the motion concur?
Yes.
And the second as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, very good. So we'll make those appropriate changes. Any other discussion? Mr. Oswald?
Oh,
I just want to say kudos to the chief. You know, trying to utilize this little dollars that we get. He's made a good comment about installing all his own lights and things. You know, you save a little here, you save a little there. And I think with the police department, the fire department, everybody needs to start tightening their belt, but try to get done with as little as they got. You heard the mayor talking how he's making people work for their money. And I think we need to do that because times are going to be getting tough And just these little suggestions that he had are going to make a difference to make our dollars go further. And I think the residents can appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oswald. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Item number 6. We've considered the matter of leasing 2 2021 Vector trucks and 1 CCT truck for the WWPC department in order to authorize the mayor to enter into a lease agreement with Jack Doney companies for said vehicles. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Mr. Corzine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we're asking for is the ability to lease 2 2021 model 2115 Vector combination sewer cleaning trucks to replace 2 2016 Vector trucks that will be going back to Jack Doheny companies in 2021 because they will be at the end of their 5-year lease period. In addition, we're asking to lease a new 2021 CCTV camera truck for the sewer crew with equipment to replace our existing 2012 CCTV truck, which will be traded in to Jack Doheny Company if we can lease a new one in 2021 to reduce the amount of the lease on the new truck and equipment. All this would be, all this is being quoted through the State of Ohio STS purchasing contract, and monies have not been appropriated for this yet.
Okay.
I'll answer any questions.
So I guess the first question we go to Ted as far as the funding mechanism.
Well, of course, it'll be paid out of the wastewater pollution control fund, but seeing that's a lease, we probably won't have a lease payment until probably next year, I would say. And that would be included in the 2021 budget.
Okay.
If I could, Mr. Chair, through you, the cost on the CCTV truck, we at this point before the end of December, we can save $16,000 on a discount for the fiber optic bundle on that truck. Due to the COVID pandemic, they are 6 months out on getting trucks to us, both for the CCTV and the Vector trucks. So we're looking to, if possible, place an order by the end of December, first of all, to get that $16,000 savings on the camera truck, and also to start the process so that we can get at least one of the trucks before both trucks have to go back at the end of their lease period in 2021, if that makes a difference.
Through you, Mr. Chair, so you're saying that I know we're leasing these trucks, but there's a down payment on the lease?
What we have to do is at least have an order in by the end of the year, if possible. But you're right, Mr. Plesky, we won't have a lease payment until the lease papers are drawn up by the bank or the financial institution, and that most probably wouldn't be until 2021, since we're almost at the end of December now.
So the order that you're talking about at the end of the year, you're talking about a purchase order or what?
The placing of the order for the trucks that we're looking to acquire in 2021. And I'm not sure the legal ramifications of that.
So we really don't need an appropriation change for this year then?
I don't believe so, but again, I've never come to council without having the money appropriated already. So this is new territory for me.
Well, based on, the past leases, I don't think we need to do anything until the 2021 budget. I mean,
Okay.
that's when the first payment will take place.
Correct.
Wouldn't we still need the purchase order though, so that he can confirm pre-January 1 for the new truck?
No, because the purchase, we're not really entering into a purchase order because we're leasing the truck.
Leasing, yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it does sound though that Mr. Corzine is going to need an ordinance authorizing the contract in order to get this
Right.
vehicle ordered, because they still have to build it, whether we're purchasing it or leasing it. Is that correct,
That sounds right.
Mr.
Yes.
Corzine?
That being said, I imagine we want this under an emergency then, since we only have the
21st meeting.
next meeting coming up.
Yes, that would be correct.
Because you said there's about a 6-month lead time for them to build these.
Yeah, it takes 6 months because of the pandemic right now. They're at least 6 months out lead time to build and deliver.
Okay. Does the motion concur with the emergency?
Yes.
Second does?
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion in regards to this?
Question.
Question's been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Corzine. Item number 7, there was some confusion in regards to communication between myself and the council clerk's office and how this was worded. So this is not a raise for the clerk of courts and the municipal judges. This is for their employees and the judges' staff. So I just want to make clarification in regards to that. I'm sorry for that miscommunication. So item number 7, we've considered the matter of an increase in compensation for employees of the Elyria Municipal Court judges and the employees of the Elyria Municipal Court clerk of courts, and ordinance authorizing said compensation for the said employees.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I apologize, but I had indicated earlier today that I thought it would be best if there was a separate committee report for the clerk employees and for the judicial employees.
Okay, so let me see, did I get that? Okay, so let me start over. We've considered the matter of an increase in compensation for the employees of Elyria Municipal Clerk of Courts, an ordinance authorizing the said compensation for said employees, a 1% pay increase in the $250 one-time payment. And $250 on a one-time payment. Can I get a motion to get it on the floor?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird.
Second.
Second by Mr. Tolet. So in discussion that Director Deary and I had with the clerks, we went over, this is kind of in line with what their employees, me too, that was, worked out through in previous negotiation. So this is just kind of their somewhat in line with AFSCME on some of their visions of just where things are at. There are some other things that need to be discussed here in the future, but this is kind of where we're at with this. They're just kind of catching up to what AFSCME was had. So for both groups. So is there any discussions in regards to the clerk of courts? Ms. Davis.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So how many you say that this affect? How many employees does this affect?
Well, this would just be the clerk of courts. This is just the Elyria Muni Court. So that we're separating it out based on, the clerk of courts and then the judges. So they're still under one building, but they're separate within themselves.
Entities, yeah.
Yes, Mr. Through you, Mr.
Director Deary.
Yes. Mr. Pileski or Mr. Farrell, do you have a number of how many clerk of court employees this would affect?
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, there's 19 Muni clerk of courts employees.
So for this provision, it would affect 19 employees. And
yes,
I also believe that this has been requested to be considered as an emergency so that it would go into effect the next full pay period.
So, Mr. Chair, through you, my question is that they are trying to receive what AFSCME employees received, including the $250 signing bonus that AFSCME received per person. AFSCME does not have any part-time employees in their group, whereas there are part-time employees in the clerk's office and in the judge's office. So if it's council, finance committee and council's desire to move forward with this, I need some direction on whether we are including the part-timers with the $250 bonus, because there are no part-time employees in the AFSCME unit.
All right, so for purposes of trying to keep this straight, for right now, we're just going to talk about employees of the clerk of courts.
Correct.
Okay.
So that they have 2 part-time employees. So do the 2 part-time employees get the $250 bonus?
I wouldn't think so.
It would be my recommendation that the part-time employees are excluded. Because that's not something excluded, because that's not something that AFSCME receive, because they don't have them.
Correct.
So just to play devil's advocate, there are no part-time AFSCME employees. So there are no part-time employees of AFSCME who got a 1% raise either.
So they would get, the part-timers would get what Law Director Deary is saying is that the part-timers, if we choose to give them that, or there's no part-timers in the AFSCME, so then the part-timers would not get the 1% either.
And I'm not saying that that's what you should do. I'm just saying to compare part-timers to AFSCME is really apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Arguably, to play devil's advocate.
Ms. Mitchell, it's not, she's called Vic.
Okay. Okay, Donna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So are the employees of Muni Court members of AFSCME?
No.
So how do they get, please help me understand. I don't know how union stuff works. So help me understand, how do they get the Me Too? Please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, they are requesting that they receive the same as AFSCME.
Why?
Because they believe that they're justified in receiving it.
I'm just saying
historically, and I'm summarizing, historically, as you may recall, 165 would follow in line, and the court, judicial employees and clerk of court employees also would receive that. Now, when Mr. Stewart and I met with the clerk of courts and the 2 judges last week, we explained that there have been a lot of changes in the last several years. For instance, the salary study and structure that was put in place has changed things for Chapter 165 employees, that 165 employees no longer get longevity.
165 employees have not gotten a raise in some time.
There was a cost of living raise of 2% last year.
Last year, cost of living raise.
And for instance, now that they are on the salary structure, I can just speak for my own employees. They follow the steps. And so these employees who are due to get a bump, whether they're steps 0 through 6, they move up every year. And if they're 6 through 12, they move up every other year. And that's based on the salary structure that we've adopted.
So, Mr. Chair, if I may, going back, I guess, to Ms. Deary, because they asked for AFSCME's Me Too, that doesn't mean we have to do it.
That is correct.
It does not.
No.
Because
Conversely-
they get a $250 signing bonus, which
For what? You
go ahead,
Do-
Ms. Davis.
Well, this
Do
was,
you, Mr. Chair, a signing bonus come when you have a union? That's how the signing bonus is worked out. And since they don't have that union to negotiate that for them, I don't see why we would just give them $250. And
Well-
so the 1% raise, we should be talking to Ted to see where that's going to come from at this time.
yeah. Well, conversely, when we talk about, the historic nature of things in regards to the AFSCME and how that all is the Me Too and that, that's kind of where this has kind of evolved itself. And we've had that conversation just here directly with Miss Mitchell, just mentioning about the 165 and that, and trying where we're at. And they're falling in line with where they feel that is, they fall in line with AFSCME and what they would AFSCME would get, and being mindful of that, negotiations are happening with EPPA, and that in 2021, if there's an agreement that's reached, whatever that agreement would be, and Director Firestein, if you want to weigh in, is that if EPPA is given a whatever percentage in 2021, that would be given to AFSCME employees, which in turn would then be the Elyria Muni Court would have that opportunity or that bump in as well.
Through you, Mr. Chair, whatever, if the EPPA gets more than 1%, AFSCME has a Me Too clause that they would get the difference.
Right.
Yes.
Is that confirmed, Mr. Firestein?
The chair, that is correct.
And based on that, I'm sure that if that does happen, then you will get another request from Muni Court.
Thing of it is, the employees aren't asking for it, obviously aren't going to reject it, but it's the judges and the clerk are asking on their behalf. Would that be correct?
Right. And they initially had a court order, and they rescinded the court order, if that's correct language, Miss Deary, and we kind of had this conversation last week in regard to, trying to work with the courts and kind of to come to a decision in regard to that. So.
But let's be clear, Mr. Chair, through you, if council decides we don't want to give them that, and I'm not saying that is the direction we're headed in, the judges could very easily court order us to give it to them. We would have no choice.
Through you, Mr. Chair, my assessment is that a court order would not be proper. There's been a series of Ohio Supreme Court cases that said that would not be proper. However, could they do it? Yes. Could it be a prolonged, ugly, nasty, I don't want to say battle, but nastiness? Yes. Obviously, they feel, both the judges and Clerk Rothgary, they've independently made these requests that they believe that their employees are justified to be compensated in this manner. I don't believe that they see it that their employees are similar necessarily to AFSCME employees. They're just looking for some sort of yardstick by which to come up with a reasonable increase in compensation.
Right. And just
through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Deary. So isn't it true that the judges really don't have the authority to order a raise for the clerk's employees?
That is correct. And so that is why when we met, I requested that if Mr. Rothgary wished to make that to make the referral on behalf of his employees, that he would make a separate request, even if it was for all intents and purposes identical to what the judges were asking for their respective employees.
Right. And just
and through you also, does not the law say that the judges can set the salaries for their bailiffs, but the legislative authority sets the salaries for all other court employees?
Yes, the revised code is very specific about that.
And in those discussions also that we had, that the judges did not request the retro pay. That way they kind of eliminated that. So they were looking at their 1% raise, the $200 signing bonus, and the retroactive pay. So they declined the retroactive pay because they just weren't, and they didn't feel that that was appropriate where they were at.
Yes, they did. There was an initial mention of them seeking retroactive pay, and they in turn said no, that they were seeking the 1% moving forward. Both from the clerk's office and the judge's office.
Mr. Chair, through you, I have to agree with Mrs. Davis. I don't understand the $250 signing bonus. I don't get that.
Yeah. Well, again, they're looking at the standpoint of that is what AFSCME.
They are not AFSCME.
Yeah.
And through you, Mr. Chair, they are referring to it as a stipend.
As a what?
A stipend.
Stipend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mr. Oswald.
When does it end? When does it end where we just keep giving everybody raises when everybody else is not making the money? When does it end? When we don't have no more money to pay everybody? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Oswald. Was there any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, through you to Mr. Oswald, please understand that we really don't have a choice in this. I mean,
through you, I believe you do.
We do now, Donna, because they rescinded the court order. They're not moving forward. It could, per our conversation that we had with them, Ms. Deary and I, and that, they felt that maybe the 1% and the $250 signing bonus, even though that is not a good way to put it, because that's because that is what they're falling in line with where they feel they're in line with AFSCME. So what AFSCME would get, that's what the courts would get.
So could they, excuse me, Mr. Talat, but could the courts come back with a court order, or is that no longer legal to do so? I thought I heard you say.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I can't obviously predict what they may do. I would instruct you all that would I would take issue with it. Let's put it
I think the reason why we kind of had the meeting was to kind of talk about it in the court order, because there was confusion in regards to having with the judges and then with the clerk of courts. They had to be separate requests, and that's kind of where we started the conversation. And I think that was the intent, that we would rescind back on the court order and that we would have this being brought here before the finance committee and then ultimately to full council with the 1% and the $250 signing bonus is what was being talked about, where they feel that they're in line with AFSCME.
And through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, that is how it was set out. Obviously, I don't speak on behalf of you all, but that is what was set forth in the meeting, is that they have, at least as far as Clerk Rothgary said, they are requesting that their people be treated for purposes of raises as AFSCME is treated. And there may be a bigger picture here that needs to be looked at going forward.
Right. I think that's
when these things are negotiated, that and I know that was discussed at the time that this contract was ratified, that these are the types of discussions that are going to have to be held, and they're not necessarily pleasant.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ted, usually when you do a signing bonus, been in the union a long time, we give up 40% of that signing bonus back in taxes. What happens? Does the same thing apply here?
Through you, I don't believe it's 40%. I can tell you that typically, as far as pension is concerned, it's not a pensionable item because it's not basically what they consider pensionable income. It's not earned. So I'm not quite sure about the taxes. I don't think it'd be 40%, but I can tell you that for all the court employees, the $250 bonus would cost approximately $11,750, and that would include the part-timers. The 1% on an annual basis would be, the first year would be about $25,532. And of course, if they, moving forward, any percentage then would be based on the new base. But them are the numbers that we came up with.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Ted, is that everybody in the building then?
Yes.
Clerks, people, both judges, people?
Correct.
Chair Tolet.
So potentially though, if we said no to this, they could come back through a court order and ask for retro pay and demand retro pay through a court order. I think we'd be better off to eliminate the bonus for the part-timers, give the bonus for the 250 and a flat 1%, where it could cost us more through a court order.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I want to be clear. I don't believe that a court order is legal, but I also don't want to mislead any of you and say that it could get ugly, and I don't know. It's not for me to decide for each of you whether that sort of protracted ugliness is worth it.
Right. And I think just so that everyone understands, not that we, whatever this committee decides and ultimately council, this was negotiated with AFSCME, the $250,000 signing bonus. Director Firestein, if you can relate to me as regard to the dispatchers, was there a bonus given there? So we're all kind of going in line. I know these are union individuals, but a precedent's been set. And now we're having to, work through that. And, I think moving forward, those things need to be seriously looked at by council as far as negotiations go with these bonuses. And I think it's really, we're setting a precedent.
So I'll take that one, Council President. And in terms of, and I'll let Director Firestein speak to this as well, but I think it's important to note what Councilwoman Davis said earlier is this is the purpose of the union. The union negotiates these things, and this is collective bargaining. These signing bonuses are agreements with unions. This is an agreement with the union body. So I just want to point that out. But Director Firestein, feel free.
Sure. But but we agreed to that as a full council in getting that, and that was part of a negotiating term that was being used to kind of make up for some percentages that was being initially asked for. Now it's not part of their base, but Director Firestein.
Well, Chairman, to your point, that was part of the strategy, and I guess not the strategy, but the discussion we had with AFSCME at the time of not, when we negotiated that contract, it was in the middle of the COVID pandemic, uncertain of what our payrolls were going to be, our revenue was going to be. And instead of they were arguing for 2%, if not more. By agreeing to a 1% and the signing bonus, that signing bonus does not get rolled into their base salary, and it's just a one-time payment. So instead of negotiating, and I welcome anyone to, negotiating table. It's not the easiest thing in the world. One side wants more, one side wants less, and you got to meet in the middle. And they're not the easiest things in the world. And if you don't agree, as we are with one union, we go to fact finding. And it's a roll of the dice. You could get a great day, you could get a very bad day. So sometimes, striking a deal in the middle is the best way to go about it. And you live with the consequences that lay there. And right now, this is part of it, but the signing bonus much to the mayor's point, and he was, he helped kind of work that out, was trying to get a deal done to satisfy both sides and not have it impact future years. So to that point, that's what it was for.
Ms. Davis.
Mitchell.
I'm sorry, Ms. Mitchell, my apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Firestein and Mayor, I don't think we are disagreeing at all with the negotiations of ASME. That's what the union is for, to get the best deal to protect their people. What I'm having trouble seeing my way to is that we're going to give muni court employees who are not ASME. They are not the same thing as ASME. That's what I'm struggling with, and that's what I have a problem with. This Me Too stuff, and they are not union.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Mitchell.
For that, Donna?
Please.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I don't think we should penalize them for that, though, because they're actually taking less because we're not doing retro pay.
Understood, but should we reward them because ASME got it and we're just going to say, okay, here, we're just going to, this Me Too stuff, I get it, it's a negotiation tactic, but we really have to look at that, I think.
I'm just past precedent as well.
Yeah, I think those are some of the things that need to be looked at when we're moving forward with these discussions, and council should be a little bit involved in what's going on with what's being presented until maybe the deals are in hand. But
Mr. Chair, if I may clarify, I don't have a problem with them getting the 1% raise. I just don't understand them getting the $250 signing bonus. I don't understand that.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Mitchell. Is there any further discussion in regards to, where we're at? I think that it's tough. It's a tough decision to do with in regards to this. It was a precedence that's been set, but I guess moving forward, it's something that needs to be looked at hard of whether we're going to continue to go down this path of where we're at with this. And those discussions need to be a little bit had moving forward. But so I guess the thing would be is at this point, the part-timers, is that something that we're not going to give the bonuses to?
I would say
that was my motion. Yeah. Mr. Tolet second, I think, or vice versa, whatever.
Yes, I second.
Is there any further? So I guess for the committee, do we need to amend the committee report, Ms. Deary, to reflect that, or just based on? So right now, it seems that we're going to be giving the 1% raise to. This is just in directly to the clerk of courts. We're just holding that right at this particular time.
Yes, we're talking about clerk of courts for the time being, and just so. For clerk of courts, the 1% raise, how are you treating part-time employees?
No, $250.
Yeah, the emotion would be if you're a part-time employee that they would not receive
not be eligible
for the $250 bonus.
But all employees are getting the 1%.
Yes.
Okay, so as long as it states that.
So is everyone clear of that? So the part-timers would still get the 1% raise, but they wouldn't get the $250 bonus.
Correct.
And it would be an emergency, and that it would go into effect the next full pay period.
I think that's what we discussed earlier that you suggested.
John and Ted, is that workable?
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Through you, yes. I do have a question through the chair to Amanda, though, in regards to the salary ordinance exhibit itself.
Okay.
So I had originally prepared one to break out all of the muni court positions, including the part-timers.
Okay.
And so I guess my question would be, does muni court need two separate salary exhibits now? One for the clerk of court's office and one for everybody else?
Well, I mean, I don't want to jump ahead, but okay, let's just say, assuming hypothetically, everybody gets 1%, part-time and full-time, then that exhibit's probably okay, right?
Okay.
Am I following?
Yeah, they're listed, it's separated out on that exhibit and in regards to not by clerk of courts and judges, but just in general, all of the muni court full-time positions. And then there's a section on the exhibit for just the part-timers.
How many part-timers are there, John?
2.
There are 6 security bailiffs and 1 secretary in the muni court clerk's office. The bailiffs are they're in some of the special funds. The muni court security, I believe, is where the bailiffs are paid.
We can.
But it really doesn't. The salary exhibit itself doesn't list the employees under it, so really it's just a grade that's picked based on, well, the ordinance in this case. So they would still remain non-bargaining, unclassified, and classified employees, just like this Chapter 165 lists them. But what I was trying to do, just I guess looking ahead, knowing that this probably isn't the last of these requests, that it'd be easier just to give them their own salary exhibit.
I think that's okay, but we can talk about it more tomorrow.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that's fine, because everybody's gonna get hypothetically, everybody's gonna have the 1%. The only difference between
Correct.
part-time and full-time is the 250,
That's correct.
based on this motion.
And if you remember back recently, we passed a new part-time seasonal ordinance to incorporate the state of Ohio's minimum wage increase. So I wanted these employees these positions are coming off of that ordinance to because they're exclusive to the muni court. The certain ones that I took off of the regular part-time seasonal exhibit.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Chair.
So
Got it, Vic?
I guess that's all clear as mud, I guess.
So a motion and a second you've had.
We had a motion and a second. Now, do we need to elaborate on the going back and forth? We had this discussion regarding the 1% and the part-timers and just whatever that was made by Mr. Tolet and second by Mr. Baird, or vice versa. That would cover that.
1% for all clerk employees, the 250 for the full-time clerk employees only,
Right.
Correct.
Can I get a motion to concur?
in an emergency.
An emergency? Can I get
An
a
emergency. Yes. So move.
moved by Mr. Baird?
Second,
Second by
concur.
Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Motion carried. And then to follow up, I got to get back on my phone because it's that.
The Browns kicked off already.
Okay.
They won.
Not yet.
Okay, this is the second of that piggybacks that. We've considered the matter of an increase in compensation for employees of Elyria Municipal Court judges, and ordinance authorizing the said compensation for the said employees, a 1% pay increase for all employees, and a $250 one-time payment only for full-time employees. Can I get
So
a
move.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Baird, second by Mr. Tolet. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
I'm sorry, emergency as well on this.
Emergency as well?
An emergency. Yes.
Concur.
Your motion concurs, second concurs. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, item number 8, we've considered the matter of the final amendments of the 2020 permanent appropriations. An ordinance authorizing the attached list of amendments of the 2020 permanent appropriations for ordinance 2020-38. Can I get a motion?
So
So
moved, Mr.
moved.
Chairman.
Moved by Mr. Baird, second by Ms. Davis. Mr. Plesky or Mr. Farrell, who's handling that?
I'll take this one, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
So, as you know, this time of year, I take a look at the estimated revenues and final appropriations and amend them as needed. So I didn't get too crazy with these amendments this year. I did have to reduce my estimated revenues in the general fund by about 515,000. So if you look on page 1 of the exhibit, hopefully you have it there in front of you. I reduced the cemeteries salary and wages by 100,000 and Parks and Recreation salary and wages by 200,000. Mainly there was room there because we made some changes in both departments due to the pandemic and lack of revenue. Moving down to the bottom of the page, just some moving monies around in the mayor's office and in the admin support, minor changes. Page 2, down on the bottom, there's a couple down there, which are basically moving monies around, no real changes there. Page 3, going over down to muni motor vehicle, had to change my revenue estimate there a little bit, so reducing their appropriation by 33,925. On page 4, there's several changes in the block grant fund. And typically the block grant fund is a reimbursement type grant. So there was quite a bit of money that did not come in and consequently a lot of money that was not spent. So I reduced the block grant to align the revenues and the expenses. Page 5, some minor changes, mostly deductions, and a lot of these are the muni court special funds, which their fine money and court costs are actually down over 500,000 for the year. So I had to make some changes to all their estimated revenues and then consequently reduce their appropriation. But the pandemic has hit their collections very hard. Page 8, the local coronavirus relief fund, we did receive another check from the county, so appropriated that and made some changes as far as moving some monies around. Cemetery M&I had to reduce the revenues there, so reduced the appropriation by 35,125. No real changes in the issue 6 fund, just a wash there. Same with Elyria Muni Recovery Court. There is one change on page 8 that's not included on the exhibit that I discovered this today in the West River Road Improvement Fund. Need to add 15,691 because there was a change order and part of that will be paid by the OPWC, part by the city. So that's one change that I will give to the clerk's office. So there will be a 15,691 addition in Fund 416 West River Road Improvement Capital Outlay. And down in the middle of the page in the Chestnut Commons Connector Road Fund, the original estimate for that project was $5,750,000. We only borrowed $5.2 million. So I reduced the estimated revenue and correspondingly reduced the appropriation by $550,000. Basically, the water fund was a wash, just moving $396,899 around. Special Parks and Recreation, that fund I had to reduce the estimated revenue because there was fewer programs and less money coming in for program fees. So I reduced that appropriation by $76,026. Wastewater pollution control, that's a wash. And a little bit of an increase in the workers' compensation fund as we still owe one bill toward the end of the year coming up. So mostly reductions, mainly because revenues came in less than what I anticipated.
Yeah.
Mainly because of the pandemic.
Sure. Any questions for Finance Director Plesky?
Thanks for keeping it up to date.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's been a struggle. Thank you, Ted and John and your staff.
Question?
Questions have been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Item number 9, we've considered the matter of transferring monies and ordinance authorizing the finance director to transfer monies from various accounts. Finance Director Plesky.
Through you, Mr. Chair, there's 2 of the muni court special funds that are actually in the red as far as cash. And the projected amount in the legal research and court computerization fund at the end of the year is a negative $15,000. And then in the muni court special collections fund, minus a negative $20,000. So with my conversations with the judges, we are going to transfer $15,000 from the muni court security fund to the legal research and court computerization fund, and $20,000 from the muni court security fund to the muni court special collections fund to clear up those negative amounts.
Yep. Any questions for Finance Director Plesky?
Whoever.
Question?
Questions are called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Okay, home stretch. Item number 10. We consider the matter of temporary appropriations for the year 2021 and ordinance authorize the attached list of temporary appropriations for 2021. Finance Director Plesky.
I think John's going to take this one.
All right.
Yep,
John?
I'll take this, Chairman. I initially sent out an exhibit on Saturday, an 8-page exhibit, and I had a couple changes to it this morning, so I resent to all council, and included with it, I have a 2-page little summary to summarize the changes that were made. Now, typically with the temporary appropriation, we would use the prior year, in this case, the 2020 final appropriation that Ted just reviewed.
Right.
And we take 30% of those amounts to get us going into the new year. And in addition to the 30%, then we'll add in any open purchase orders that are out there at the end of the year. Now, that's the case with the majority of this 8-page document. Although what I have summarized on the first 2 pages are any departments and items that don't actually meet those at 30%. So for instance, on page 1 of the general fund and the ice rink, since that operation typically runs 6 months out of the year, they really need half of their budget at the beginning of the year and half of their budget at the end of the year. So those that's 50%. And if you look on about in the middle of page 1, their temporary appropriation total of 121,471 is half of what they would typically use for the year. Also on page 1 in community development, Director Scott had asked that their operating and maintenance be pumped up to a little more than the 30% for the purchase of some laptops. That's it for page 1. Page 2, that's all 30% plus open purchase orders. Page 3, for the state highway fund, this fund is used exclusively for road salt. So I appropriated the total available balance at the beginning of the year. And if we use that whole amount, then we're gonna have a lot of snow coming, so hopefully that.
Hopefully not. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully we'll be talking about that 500 at the end of the year. For the muni motor vehicle fund, capital outlay, I've appropriated the full amount using the engineer Schneider's estimate for streets that are still unfinished from this year. There's some open purchase orders in the amount of $666,293. So the balance of that is the estimated revenue and the cash that's in the fund at this point in time. The next two on page 3, the brownfield hazardous, and then the block grant is just kind of some cleanup from, or neighborhood stabilization, I'm sorry. That's monies that are just left over from grants from this year. Block grant, let's see, the only change is a slight change in the rehab operations for benefits and pension that Director Scott had asked for. Other than that, that's 30% plus open purchase orders. The Muni Court Security Fund, I reduced it initially on the exhibit that I sent out. They had money in there for capital outlay, which we typically don't appropriate in the temporary unless it's a carryover purchase order. In this particular case for Muni Court Security, that was a grant from 2020, so that won't be needed in 2021. So that's been reduced to 0. Of note on page 5 is the local coronavirus relief monies that we received from this year. And the only items that are left, since that fund goes away at the end of the year, are the open purchase orders. So that's what is in the temporary for 2021. The next change on page 6, the 2016 0.5% income tax, affectionately known as issue 6. That amount in the economic development, the mayor asked to appropriate what was unspent this year plus their normal allocation. So the 1.1 million, I think, reflects some of the programs that he reviewed earlier today, plus the normal appropriation for the year. Other than that, those are 30% plus actually the street repair, I did appropriate the full balance of $2,190,152. That's open purchase orders plus the balance of what could not be paid out of the Muni Motor Vehicle Fund, because that we used all of that money up in the appropriation. Let's see, page 7, West River Road. That change I made, that was I reduced it to just the open purchase orders. That's all that's left in that fund. Same for the Ford Road resurfacing. That's just the open purchase orders. Water miscellaneous, those numbers came from engineer Schneider. That's his estimate for the first quarter of 2021. Capital outlay items. And then the water capital and the wastewater capital fund, those are the total balances available. So I had reduced them. I had too much money in there initially, but we backed it down to what's available in the fund. And last but not least, our on page 8, our workers' compensation fund. We get 2 billings a year, one at the beginning of the year and one at the end of the year. So I just split that appropriation in half, 50% in the temporary, as opposed to just the normal 30% for any other fund. But this should get us into the first of the year anyway. And then we're currently been working with the administration. All the departments have received their files to start piecing together their 2021 permanent appropriation requests. So I imagine sometime in the beginning of the new year, we'll start to review those. So
Any
that's
questions?
it for the temporary.
Any questions for Mr. Fair in regards to what was presented?
Good explanation.
Thank you.
We'll have our challenges next year. Is there any further discussion? Call for the question.
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Very good. I think there's nothing more to come before this committee. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second by Ms. Davis. Any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Thank you, everyone, for tonight.
Thank
See
y'all
you
for all
next
your hard
Monday.